All right, guys. Hey, this is Nico G. This is Brian Sanchez. This is my best friend. How long have we known each other, Brian?
Yeah, we've known each other for about how long? I mean, since like seventh grade middle school. So
Seventh grade middle school. So that.
I don't know how long.
How
it's
old was
been,
I?
but-
How old are we? 12? 12?
Yeah, I want to say 12.
12 years
Yeah,
old.
12 years old.
Yeah. And we're currently juniors in college right now.
Juniors in
So
college.
year 3, almost done. So yeah, this is gonna be my podcast. This is the T with Nico G. This is also doubling as my final project for my class, Introduction to the Music Industry, taught by Professor James Seiler. He's a really cool dude, and I'm really excited to get into it. Brian, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, to give yourself a little bit of background and stuff.
Yeah. So, I'm a junior here at UTSA, part of the film and media program. Just been doing filmmaking for a good about like 3 years now. It's been really fun, really amazing being able to make films, been able to learn a lot within the industry, meet a lot of cool people, and just having a lot of fun with it. So
Yeah, and the reason I chose Brian is, one, he's my best friend, but also
guilty.
we did talk about in the class, we actually wrote a paper on comparing the business models of the music industry and the film industry. And since I'm audio engineering and music tech major, and he is a film major, we kind of combined our skills a little bit. So I'm running the sound, he's controlling the cameras. So it's actually pretty cool. This is actually a pretty cool project. Yeah. But yeah, so first let's get started. I have a couple of questions that I prepared.
Yep.
Then it's conversation, so it'll just go on naturally, you know.
For sure.
But yeah, so one of the first questions I have, that I wanted to discuss is how do you think that the production process runs when you're creating your films? Because I don't know, when you're on set, you're creating your short films. I know you have a team. You have your own process.
For sure. It's like the same but different kind of thing.
Yeah, and so I have my own process. So I did want to talk about how is it for you? Because I actually was a part of your first project. You directed a music video for my dad.
Yeah, he was a big actor in that one for sure.
Yeah, so but I don't know behind the scenes and all that stuff. So go ahead, how is it? How do you think it's like? Just describe your process.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so for filmmaking wise, it's kind of been laid out since kind of the beginning of filmmaking has been, there's always been a kind of a specific way people have been doing it. There's kind of this 3-act way of making a film, pre-production, production, and post-production. As far as the beginning process, I'll just dive into pre-production here, and it's just basically just kind of all the nitty-gritty stuff you get through before you actually turn the cameras on. So, basically it's really just all the planning, getting the crew together, just making all the final documents, of course, getting the script ready and everything, and just getting everything organized, So, of course, in any film, you have the shots and everything. So whenever you have the shots going on, you have to make this thing called a shot list. So whenever you write that down, you're just basically writing down the specific shots and everything like that, just so you could keep that all in one page, so you could know on day of what to do. Other things like that are call sheets, letting to know people when to show up to set and everything like that. Whenever lunch happens, whenever the estimated wrap for the film for the production happens. But yeah, it's really just kind of working together, whether you're the director of photography, or assistant director. You're really just there, kind of in the foxhole, trying to get everything worked together, and just trying to make the film just happen as smoothly as possible. Because within any production, with any project, there's always those challenges that you have to go through. Right. So that whole process is obviously just to really fight off those challenges so you don't have to go through them, basically. So
right. And I would say specifically for you, how long, or what would you say is the most difficult part when you're creating your scripts, when you're creating your storyboards, boards? Do you ever have? Cause I know this is very common for me. Do you ever have writer's block?
Yeah, for sure.
You cannot think of an idea. You're just that doesn't sound good. Yeah, and then you do come up with something, and halfway through you're just okay, scratch that. Let's try again.
No, yeah, that happens. I feel within any creative, whatever you specifically do, there's always that moment to where you're just kind of stuck, and you're just oh man, I don't know what to do. So I mean, in writing that happens all the time, But it just kind of within any of those processes, at least for me, whenever that happens, I just kind of I feel like that's kind of a way of like my brain telling me to take a break, you know, for a little bit. And like,
yeah, for sure.
Like it doesn't have to be like, you know, a day or something. It'll be like at least 5 minutes of just me to like, you know what, let me just like chill out for a bit, maybe listen to some music, kind of get my brain kind of back into the headspace, because it's really hard whenever like you're writing or doing anything like that, or even the process of planning for a film. When those blocks happen, those walls happen, it hits you really hard, and you're not kind of like stuck, you know? So
Yeah, for sure.
in that moment, I just try to kind of like take time to just kind of like formulate everything out in my mind. You know, I don't know how it is for you, but I feel like for me, I just kind of like listen to music or just trying to, you know, walk outside for a little bit, you know, and just kind of get back into that headspace. And then whenever I feel ready or comfortable, I just get back into it and just, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
on it, you know?
And it's the same here, you know. One of the most like common questions I get asked all the time is like, what do you write first, like lyrics or melody?
Oh man, honestly, I wonder the same thing.
I always get asked that question, and for me, I think it really just depends. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll just be like sitting there and I get like this melody in my head and I'm like, ooh, let me record that on like my voice memos or something. Or I'll get like a lyric and I'm like, dang, that's a good line. I should like write that down.
Okay.
And then it really just depends like the song that I have. You know what I mean? It differs from song to song, but yeah. Has it ever happened to you where you're just like, you got an idea and you're like, okay, let me jot that down?
No, that happens like every single time. Like whenever I'm just kind of like, even just like going about like my day-to-day life, you know, I could be outside or something like that, or I could be at work, or I could just be walking around somewhere, or just walking into a store or something, and like some sort of idea will kind of like happen, like when I'm like just observing just the world around me. Something will just strike my brain and I'm just like, wow, that's actually a really cool idea. Like, and it could be either like a beginning of a story, or it could be like a specific shot. Oftentimes in my brain, I kind of picture like a shot, you know, like a specific frame of a film.
Oh, okay, I see.
You know, like,
so you have like a image already, like in your head.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I picture, if anything, just kind of like see what's going on in the picture, and then I try my very hardest to build from there, or what happened before that shot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's kind of how I see it, and it's interesting because I feel like everybody kind of has that different, like kind of way they see things, the way they kind of interpret things as far as like filmmaking. You either kind of think of lines, or you're kind of just really, you have a knack for writing and stuff like that, or you just kind of have a knack for just being able to see things as just like the way they are already in the film. I remember reading up on like Steven Spielberg, and I remember reading that he kind of does the same thing, to where he really just thinks in shots first, and that's how he builds his story from there.
That's interesting. I didn't know about that.
So it's really cool that, like, you know, like coming from an actual big time like director, you know what I mean? Like that's something that still happens, and you know, it happens to like kind of me. I mean, it doesn't happen like often, and I don't like have the like, I don't do it like every single time or anything like that, but whenever it does, it's really cool whenever you have that idea and you just kind of are able to, you know, build from there.
Right.
It's really cool.
So moving on to my next question. And this is kind of like this is more of like a historical question or whatever.
Yeah.
But for you, how do you think like the film industry has changed technological wise? Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
okay.
because I know like even just like 5 years ago, like the way that like now they're doing like deep fakes and it's crazy. Like like Luke Skywalker. One example is like in The Mandalorian season 2.
Oh man, yeah.
Yes, you know,
for
like
sure.
spoiler warning. But Mandalorian season 2, beautiful finale. Luke Skywalker appears. And like his face is kind of off, like you can tell it's like kind of CG. But then you fast forward like literally like a year or a few years later, and in the Book of Boba Fett, he's in there for an episode, and the CGI just gets like so much better. Like they use like a deep fake or like I don't know what the technical term is or whatever, but
something
like just
that.
the technology changes so fast. It's so crazy.
It's really crazy, yeah. And I guess to like bridge from there, like as far as like the whole history aspect of like filmmaking and everything, it's just it's really interesting that like, of course, like, you know, as technology has like, advanced and everything, to be able to make kind of a lot of this process a lot smoother as far as equipment wise, and even just like computer programming wise, you know, before people had to write down things and write down papers and everything like that, but now we could be able to just type it out real quick, send an email. It's a lot faster of a process. So yeah, it definitely cuts down the time. So it's really like definitely been beneficial, it's also interesting the fact that, you know, with the new like age of like digital cameras, you know, there's still the usage of film cameras used today, and on a lot of like, you know, box office films and everything. And because of that is because the film itself, it just kind of brings in a lot more light dynamic into the camera. So that's why a lot of like, you know, filmmakers try to still use that even to this day. I'd assume differently because for people wanting to use digitally, maybe preference or maybe the kind of equipment, you know, kind
or
of
like
funding
that's
they
something
have.
they've like been used to.
Yeah, or something like that too, or just depending on whatever the circumstances are in the film. That's kind of another reason, you know, just why they'll use it. But going to like the CGI aspect, one aspect I feel of which that is required and needed for digital like filmmaking, I feel like. At least I could be wrong. Maybe they've also had like films to where it's been shot all in film and they've still done CGI in that, which still would be pretty crazy. But it's interesting, like how you bring up that oftentimes, even in today's time, people still use CGI, but at times it just doesn't look good, just doesn't look right. And that's just very unfortunate because you would assume that, you know, we would be growing into a time to where it just gets kind of better and better, but then you still see these movies that aren't like good, like
nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I agree with that. One of the main things that I have like a problem with now is sometimes CGI is a little overused.
Yes, exactly.
I like that back then in films, you know, like Jurassic Park and Star Wars, the original Star Wars as well. Sorry for mentioning Star Wars, guys. I love Star Wars, but
it's a great movie.
Yeah, not all of them, not the not the recent ones.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
But you know, what do you call it? Yeah, like that's something that I've noticed also with like the film industry is that sometimes CGI is overused, and I think that's a whole argument in itself, but I think that it also doesn't allow for like as much creativity as they used to have.
Yeah,
like back then they really relied on the practical effects. They like even when Jurassic Park came out, like CGI was getting introduced.
Oh yeah,
but like that T-Rex was practical.
Yeah,
the Velociraptors were practical at times. It just allowed for like more creativity.
Yeah,
I feel like it was like much more of like a like it gave it more personality. It gave it more realness too. You know what I mean?
No, I totally feel the same way, and like I think it just really depends on like the kind of production companies that are kind of behind those films. You know, oftentimes I feel like. You know, oftentimes, even in the beginning of filmmaking history, it's kind of always been like a money grabbing thing. You know, a bunch of people kind of jumped on that.
It is a business.
Exactly, it's a business that people saw like, you know, revenue to come from. So that's where they jumped onto it to kind of like make some money off of that. That's kind of what happened in the beginning. That's still what happens now. And even in that process, whenever they try to make films that are just like trying to make money off of it, they'll really just kind of rush the whole idea or just sell the biggest idea that they have so they could get as much money as possible. Like saying a movie that's made completely CGI that looks so good, looks so real, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, like James Cameron's Avatar, like you could tell like it was well thought out. It wasn't just like a money grab. Like
that's I guess my next point though is that there's other people that are other filmmakers that actually really believe in the craft and really see like the use of CGI or practical effects to their own advantages.
Right.
And I think that is what is a really crucial thing whenever like, you know, making a film kind of like that, to where you really see the purpose of why you use CGI or practical effects. I really love whenever people use practical effects. It looks really great. Obviously looked really great in Star Wars. Obviously looked really great in Jurassic Park.
Right.
But then also CGI also has their own advantages too. Also disadvantages as well. But when used right and done correctly, I feel like it really does, you know, achieve what it needs to achieve.
This is kind of funny, but to bring it back to like the music industry wise, because there's like a big thing nowadays. So like you're saying, like you know, like a blend of practical effects with also like digital effects. Is like you got to find that balance in music. One of the biggest things that is like going on right now is like MIDI versus non-MIDI instruments.
Okay, yeah.
So you know, like some productions, a lot of mainstream productions and stuff too. Like a lot of people are using like MIDI instruments, which is fine. You know what I mean? But sometimes doing too many MIDI instruments and MIDI, for like those of you that don't know, is like it basically just like digital instruments, like through like a piano or keyboard controller. But yeah, so like doing like MIDI instruments, kind of sounds a little bit too artificial, and it can make your recording sound kind of like I don't know. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it does work.
I was gonna
like
say,
if you have like EDM or you have like what do they call those, like dance wave music? What are they called? I don't know what they're called, but like kind of clubby music, you know,
like EDM kind of stuff.
Yeah, EDM, but like clubbing music and stuff like that. Sometimes it works, but I think for me personally, I do think that a recording should have MIDI. I don't think MIDI is totally evil. Kind of like how VFX are obviously not. Like they do have their pros, but I think finding that balance of both kind of like benefits the song as a whole, or the movie makes it really stand out. And also I want to talk about like the music technology aspect of it. I think one thing that like we didn't get to talk about in class too much. We touched on it a little bit, but not just the technological advances, but the technological advances that make it more accessible and more able to have a home studio. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because like back then, it was much harder to record a song, much harder to produce a song on your own. You know, you didn't have access to things we have now, like microphones and interfaces and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think now, like, because technology has advanced so much, I think it's a lot more easy for up and comers to start to create and produce on their own. Yeah. How would you say about that? Like in film, was that kind of the same way? Do you think it's a lot easier to get involved with the film industry nowadays, or how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think already just because by the fact of like phones and everything, phones being built with cameras, like a bunch of like any interview you see where like a big time director like Scorsese, Tarantino, where they get asked like, oh, what would you say to the next up and coming filmmaker of how they should go about making a film and everything, and they'll give you the same answer of like, well, you have a phone, it has a camera in it. Go get some friends, be free on a Saturday night, and just make a film. And that's kind of like the beauty of it all, is that you could easily start as low as just using your phone and just kind of working your way from there. And the good thing is like you mentioned with music, is that now it's a lot more accessible to get a bunch of equipment for music. It's the same thing with film now, to where you could really just go to a Best Buy and just buy a camera there. And there's a bunch of online websites where you could be able to buy equipment and everything, and you could just be able to, just build up your arsenal slowly but surely, because you definitely don't need the most expensivest thing to start out. You definitely don't need, what all of the Hollywood productions actually, use or anything like that. You definitely don't need that your first time out. It's always just that growth process that really, kind of elevates you in your craft. And luckily, with the advancements of technology and how easy it and more accessible it is, it really gives that gateway, or opens that gateway for like, us creatives to kind of like work on our craft without, breaking the bank with like a bunch of loans, having to get this kind of equipment that, was crazy in that back then. It was like a lot harder to have to get stuff like this. I mean, I'm assuming with music, you'd have to like rent a studio and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right? Back then, like they had to find a producer, find a mixer, and actually find musicians even to come in and play. But like I said, now with like MIDI and innovations like that, you could do it all yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, like having MIDI instruments is like, it's not a bad thing. Like it's like you could literally have a home studio. Like Billie Eilish started from her brother Phineas. Like they started recording from the room. Like just off a computer. Yeah. So I do think that it does have its benefits and stuff like that. That kind of leads me into like my next question, which is more about that. I know I said like 6 or 7 questions, but just for like the sake of time.
Bonus question, of course.
Yeah, we'll do like 3 questions. So like my last question is like, what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to get involved in the film industry? What has your experience been like? Because I know you always talked about it, but once you got to college, you kind of experienced it more, and me as well. Like I've been like performing since I was little. You know what I mean? Like on like live and stage, like I sang in front of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and stuff like that. But I never really got into like the music business aspects of it until I got to college. So I guess I would say like, what advice would you have to like, you know, incoming freshmen? And I know both of our majors actually just like got revamped at UTSA. They got a boost and stuff. So we're finally getting a little bit of love, the arts.
Yeah, no, finally, I know.
But
that's amazing.
What would you say to like the new freshmen and like new future up and comers that are like getting introduced to the industry and stuff like that? So what would you have to say about that?
So I'd say kind of like, I don't know. I mean, of course, I'd say the same thing. You know, I mean, as far as like, you know, what those directors I've been able to pick up from watching those videos and everything of just like, hey, all you got to do is just at least pick up a phone and just get some friends and record stuff. And you could even just record things just around your daily life, you know, and just at least make something of a film, you know, at least have a narrative. But I think the most crucial thing for sure with any kind of startup, you know, filmmaker, like, you know, somebody that wants to get into the filmmaking business industry, I think it's really crucial and important to have that curiosity. I feel like that's always been something that I've really found has been a really great power, having that. Whenever you have that curiosity, you're able to, you know, just have more questions about things, you know, have more like of an assurance, or have more of like, you know, a want to kind of go towards somebody and ask them like, oh, hey, what are you filming? What are you doing exactly? Like, I'm kind of curious as to, you know, I feel like that's a really big, important thing, you know, because that kind of also shows how interested you are into this, how it shows how much you kind of care about this kind of thing. And I think secondly is always just that tried and true thing of just like having a really great work ethic, you know, because at the same time, like in this film, this industry is much like every other one, to where you really have to have that really important work ethic, to where you kind of, if you really want to do this, if you really love this, you have to, you know, work at it, you know, you have to really put in the time to be able to do so. And it's not at all hard. Like there's challenges for sure, but that, you know, is like within any other industry, any other thing that you're trying to go into. And I'd say just to definitely like just meet people, you know, like really try to network as best as you can. You know, I feel like
networking is
a really,
especially
really
in the
thing.
arts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what really like gets you to be able to meet somebody that leads you to one other thing. And film in particular, you get to meet somebody that leads you into a project at the very least, whatever it is, maybe a student film, indie film, or maybe a film that has a little bit more money behind it or something like that. Whatever it is, you at least gain more experience on film sets. At the same time, yeah, just, you know, make films with just your camera, just your phone, and, you know, work your way from there, you know?
Yeah, and I agree with the creativity and the want. You know, you have to have that drive to, you know, because then, like, how are you gonna like keep going? You know what I mean? You're just gonna stay stuck in like one spot, and unless you're wanting that drive and have that drive to advance. I'd say for me, for somebody getting into the music industry, is I would not worry about what other people's music sounds like.
Oh yeah,
I feel like a lot of people, and I've seen it in my classes and stuff like that. In my engineering classes, like some people will have like productions. That we make and like we present them to the class and everything. Yeah. And I see these people that like get so like discouraged. They're like, oh, that doesn't sound good.
Oh man.
But I'm like, no, like if you made that, you like that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you gotta stand by
not to say that like everything I make, I'm like, oh man, that sounds good. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think you should compare yourself to what's on the radio, what's on Apple Music, Spotify, what's hitting right now. You know what I mean? Because then how are you different?
I mean, it comes back to that quote. Comparison is a thief of joy.
Exactly. You know? Yeah. And I think that for anybody like up and comers, anybody wanting to study digital music or film or whatever, and the arts and stuff like that, I think that don't compare yourself. If you have an idea, if you have a melody, a lyric, or a song, I say go for it. You know what I mean? Nobody, you know, people don't know what they want until you give it to them. You know what I mean? I think Steve Jobs said that. I think, or I don't remember who said that, but I
feel like it might be Steve Jobs.
Yeah. I feel like as cliche as that sounds, it's so true. Like, you know what I mean? You gotta innovate. You gotta be creative, and you gotta you know, be proud of the work that you do, because you made it, and nobody else could have made it that exact way. That was your mind. That was your creation. But that about like wraps up the amount of time we have. This is episode 1, and this is also my final project, like I said, for my class. And I want to say a huge thanks to Brian Sanchez, my best friend, for coming and talking about film and stuff.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really fun, and I'll catch y'all guys later. And as always, want to grab your tea.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This has been the Tea with Nico G.